economic success.
All right, well, let's bring it back home. And according to one estimate, Mr. Hall, 15 to 20% of Chicago companies are now offshoring white-collar jobs, and that number is growing every day. Give one good idea to stop Illinois companies from doing that.
I'll tell you, the first thing is to close tax loopholes. As Senator Brock and Comptroller HYNES have suggested, they have suggested closing loopholes. The first way you do that is stop taking money from those people that are outsourcing. From the top 10 outsourcing companies, they have taken a combined $130,000 from them. So doing that, how do you think they're going to be able to stand up and close those loopholes? That's what they're going to do. They're going to take calls from those lobbyists that they got the money from, and then they're going to make sure that those loopholes don't get closed. That's the issue, separating money from the decision-making process.
Okay, so stopping the offshoring white-collar jobs?
He's right there.
Sure.
Well, first of all, I appreciate Blair's compliment because we put together a very specific plan to close these loopholes. Right now, what you have is a situation in which we incentivize companies moving overseas. And if people don't understand the pain that is being experienced, just go to a place like Galesburg, where 1,500 folks lose their job overnight. And people who put 20 years of their heart and soul into building shareholder wealth suddenly are having to compete with their teenagers for jobs at Walmart or fast food joints paying a minimum wage. The taxpayers of the United States should not be incentivizing this. Now, let me address what Blair brought up. And I understand that you've looked through our reports very carefully, Blair, and you have the best opposition research teams up here. But the fact of the matter is, once again, over the last 7 years, I've got a track record of fighting on behalf of working people. And on each and every one of these issues that we're talking about here today, where the public interest and special interests have conflicted, I have been on the right side of that line.
Ms. Pappas, the Sun-Times, in endorsing the gentleman sitting to your right, said that his experience would mean he could hit the ground running. You have no experience as a legislator. Would that delay your ability to be effective?
I think that you may be mistaken on your facts.
Am I?
Yes.
Please, if so, please
that
correct
was one of those arrows I was talking about earlier. But I sat on the Cook County Board as legislator for 8 years prior to becoming the treasurer. I could tell you all the work.
Thank you for setting the record straight. I appreciate that.
16th largest governmental entity in the world.
Stand corrected.
Bill, there's still something hanging out there with regard to me. You know, this is the second time Blair Hall has suggested that Barack and I are beholden to special interests. I resent that. I mean, I think that is offensive. You don't know me. You don't know Barack. I know Barack to be an honest person, and I know I'm an honest person. Just because we don't have millions of dollars and we have to fund our campaign through the generosity of others does not give you a right to suggest that we are dishonest or beholden to anyone. And I think that's wrong.
I'd like to respond
Mr.
to
Hall?
that. I'm not really saying that you are. I'm saying
You're
that it's
suggesting
very difficult for somebody making an objective decision when, in fact, they have to take money, when they have to go collect money.
Well, that's
for their
everybody
campaign.
except somebody who
There's-
is worth $400 million.
Well, the problem, that's the real problem. You've got the really heart of the real problem. We need to separate the money from the decision-making process. That's why we need public funding of campaigns. We need also the media to contribute to that airtime, and we need to shorten the length of campaigns so they aren't as expensive. So everyone can run for office, and that's what we need to do.
Which, by the way, are proposals that I have put forward, and I'm proud of the fact that the first bill that I passed when I got down to the legislature in Springfield, working with former U.S. Senator Paul Simon, was the first campaign ethics bill in 25 years here in the state of Illinois, which I passed over the objections of Republican and Democratic colleagues of mine, Blair. So Dan's point is well taken. Look, we understand that we can't self-finance. And the reason Dan and I can't self-finance is because when we graduated from school, we made a decision that my wife has to deal with and my 2 small children have to deal with, which was we were not going to pursue wealth because we were going to engage in public service. Now, I have the enormous respect for people like yourself who've been successful in business, and that's something that I would never argue against. But what I also want to make sure of, and because this is personal, but what I want to make sure of is people understand that there is something worthwhile to make a decision that you are not going to pursue as much money as you can in the private marketplace, and instead are going to pursue the public interest. That's something certainly that I want to teach my children.
Ms. Pappas, you wanted to say something?
Well, I just think
quickly, because then I'd like to get Mr.
well, it's
Mr.
rather
Hall to
interesting that this argument is being framed in terms of either wealthy or poor. I say what really can be brought to the table is women who think completely differently and maybe right up the middle, Bill.